Hello, everyone, and welcome to Angel MD's Syndicate presentation for Indago. On the webinar with us today is one of our Syndicate leads, Dr. Brian Parsley, an orthopedic surgeon from the Houston area, along with CEO Eugene Malinsky and COO Daniel Dudley, who are both co-founders of the company. Indago has developed a tech-enabled platform for the operating room, and their first product, ArthoFree, is the world's first fully wireless, minimally invasive visualization system. ArthoFree provides a safer surgical environment for nurses, physicians, and patients by reducing trip and fall hazards posed by tethered components, and eliminates fire risk from the inefficient heat radiating, high-powered light sources using their proprietary patent-pending lightage. For more information on the Syndicate, please visit their profile page on angelmd.co, as well as what is available here on the Syndicate page. Dr. Parsley, I'll let you take it from here to give a brief introduction on how you became involved with this investment.
Thank you. This is a very exciting young company that it really hits to the core of some of the problems that we face in the operating room on a daily basis. You know, we've all had, those of us who perform arthroscopic surgery are always inundated by the cabling systems and the tethers that are tying our operating room up and also decreasing our freedom of movement as we try to address problems of the hip, knee, shoulder, or whatever part of the body that you are arthroscoping. This new innovative technology allows you to have more hands-free and detaches all the tethers that you have for your light source and your camera, that gives you much greater freedom of movement in these complex joints. As a result of that, I was excited to see this product come across my platform, and was very interested in bringing it to Angel MD so that many of my co-surgeons and physicians could invest into this new product. I thought this would be a great way for us to solve a problem moving forward, and as a result, Indago was added to our platform. With that, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Eugene Malinsky, who is the CEO and co-founder of this Indago.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eugene Malinsky. I'm the CEO of Indago, and here with me is Daniel Dudley, the CEO and the co-founder. As has already been mentioned, technology in the operating room is decades behind. As you can see, this is your standard OR. This was actually at the Cleveland Clinic. And as for every procedure, you have a number of cables and wires strewn across the floor and across the patient. As you are well aware, these wires are a potential risk. They very much get in your way while you're doing the procedure. And at Indago, we have really found a way to really get rid of those cables and to really start moving the operating room forward.
So really what we started the company to do was to look at that opportunity, that technological gap between the world in which you all perform your surgeries and perform all of these things to improve the quality of life, and where the rest of the world is. Technology is changing at the speed of light, and we're not seeing that innovation make its way into healthcare. And this leads to a huge opportunity. The endoscopic surgical market, as you can see, is $54.2 billion. Yet the technology that fundamentally is being used in that marketplace and by physicians is decades old. You know, we have in our office, we have a framed photo from 1982 of an ad in a trade magazine that says the future of video endoscopy is here. The company has since gone out of business, but that camera, that ad looks exactly the same as the types of equipment that you're seeing from Smith & Nephew and from Stryker today. And that we see is a huge problem, and it's a huge opportunity.
So old technology, current technology, really presents a number of problems that cost hospitals hundreds of millions of dollars annually. So as I mentioned, because the cables are strewn across the patient and the floor, they cause a number of falls, and these are very costly, since these would be nurses who are taking out for a number of weeks to months, as well as physicians, PAs. We've heard a number of horror stories. There are more than 200 recorded burns per year in the U.S. From endoscopic equipment, and there's obviously, as we have heard over the years, deaths from poor sterilization and poor cleaning of endoscopy equipment, and this extends into arthroscopy, right? Those cables, they are 1 to 2 cables. They are very difficult to clean. They are multiple meters long. You have to do a self-clean. You have to do a manual cleaning cycle on them twice before you actually sterilize them. So you actually have very significant issues with the current technology.
So to jump from this technology that exists to why we're doing this and who we are. So the future of the OR, that's the vision that we're going for, and the team that we've assembled around us. You can see pictures of myself and Eugene at the bottom. The team we've surrounded us with are true experts in this space. Obviously, Dr. Mark Freundsen, who was mentioned, I believe, a bit earlier, is our board chair. He's the outgoing president of the American Association of Hip and Knee Surgeons. He was a former executive at both Cleveland Clinic and Trinity Health. Most recently at Trinity Health, he served as their chief clinical officer and executive vice president. We also have John Serbisak, who's one of our independent board members. He's a former officer at Biomet, involved in the Biomet-Zimmer merger, as well as led orthopedics divisions at Medtronic, Biomet, and Depew Synthes, part of J&J. Finally, our third board member is a man named Jeff Hampton. Jeff is from a financial background. If you think of Mark as the physician, as the administrator who purchases medical equipment, that is his experience, and John being the industry insider who sells medical equipment, the third part of that equation is always the financing, the money that exchanges hands, and that's where Jeff comes in. He started his career at Goldman, then he left to run a money market fund called Milestone Capital Management, about $3 million fixed income. Then he left that to become essentially an advisor to banks. He started with Citi and Lehman, but then kind of switched to the smaller, more nimble investment banks around Wall Street. He spent the past decade as a senior advisor to Fortress Investments. He was very connected with Cowen, an investment bank with a deep healthcare focus. He also works as an advisor to small startup companies, especially in the life sciences and medical device space. So this is the team that we really feel is why we have an opportunity to not only to see this vision of creating an operating room, an interconnected space, a high efficiency space where we really enable physicians to perform procedures and not just to focus on their equipment, but we also feel that this is the team that has the ability to make that happen. So to jump directly into our technology, as was mentioned before, we started with the ArthroFree, this vision for a fully wireless, minimally invasive surgical platform. And there are two aspects to that. One of the things that Eugene likes to tell people is that what we've solved is the two problems that you have with any type of endoscopic surgery. You need light going into the body, or illumination, and some sort of video or image coming out of the body, visualization. And that's really the focus. Those are the two focuses of our platform.
Right. So ArthroFree, as we already mentioned, the world's first fully wireless minimally invasive visualization platform, is really the core of the company, our first product, and what most of our IP has been focused around. You can see a couple quick tech demo there on the left, and the before and after for your operating room. So I'm actually going to pause here for just a second and actually explain that in a little more detail. So in the current operating room, you have, and again, we're taking away a lot of sort of extraneous stuff, but in the current operating room, in that picture there in the middle, you have your standard surgical tower. So you have your light source, you have your video, and then you have your patient box or patient platform. And then the future, or the ArthroFree future, is you actually have a drop-in replacement system. So what that means is, as a hospital or as physicians, the camera and the equipment you use is as close to what you are used to using right now, right? We actually eliminate the video box, we eliminate the light box, but the patient box actually stays, and your scopes and any other attachments that you have that you're used to, those actually stay, and that was done very much on purpose. We are all about making sure that this is easy for the physicians, it's easy for the hospitals, it's easy for the ASCs, and that it makes sense, right? When you click the button for white balance, it white balances. When you click the button for picture, regardless of the platform you're using, right, whether it's a Stryker system or a Smith & Nephew system or an Arthrex system, it will take a picture and it will store it in the same way that you are used to. But we have fundamentally eliminated those cables. So we've eliminated all of those risks I mentioned earlier, the trip and falls, the sterilization and the cleanability issues, the fire issue due to the light engine. So we've really been able to move away from the current to the future system in one very swift step, and that's the Arthro platform. And then as Daniel mentioned, there are sort of two sides to what we're doing. So we just talked about the video side, or the visualization side to it, but the other side to it is actually the light side. In order, and this is going back in history a little bit, but in order to create our system, we actually had to solve a number of very fundamental problems. One of those fundamental problems was light. Current LEDs that are on the market, that are used both in medicine and non-medicine, were not good enough for what we wanted to do, right? They were either too hot, which left you with the same problems that you currently have, or they drew too much power, which meant that you can really have a battery-powered system, or they were insufficient in some other way. So we actually created what is the next evolution of solid-state lighting technology. And the reason I mention it here is that this is an entirely separate product line for us. And this is actually something we are currently looking to commercialize. So, right, we have the Arthro-free system, which is the wireless, minimally invasive camera system. And we have the lighting platform, which we are currently working on. And depending on the FDA and other schedules, may in fact actually be on the market even sooner than the Arthro-free system.
So to kind of step back for a second and talk about what differentiates us from a typical medical device company and what differentiates us from our potential competitors. And that at its core, it really is that we have a fundamentally different approach. We really didn't look at the current arthroscopic camera systems and say, where are some areas we can improve them? What can we make better? What we said was, this entire system is very inefficient. Let's rethink it from the ground up. And we built a number of technologies into that, the three most important of which are listed here. Firstly, it's a completely secure, FDA-approved wireless platform. Data, privacy, security, these are buzzwords that have been in the news constantly for the past year, and rightfully so. There's an explosion in all types of health IT and information management type platforms, but fundamentally, there's always this question of, is it secure? Is it reliable? And so what we looked at that and said, you know, if I have the most high-end Wi-Fi router in my house, and I optimize all of those systems, in the middle, inevitably, when I'm watching Netflix, it's going to cut out right before, you know, the big reveal of whatever is happening. And so we knew that this was going to be key. At the same time, if I'm transporting mission-critical data, such as video during a surgery, we need to know that no one can either interrupt that or spoof that and take advantage of that. And so this is all built around this wireless modality called ultra-wideband wireless. Now, we're happy to answer any questions about that, but the takeaways for it is it's a complete technology. It works, it's functional, and it is FDA and FCC approved and HIPAA compliant right out of the box. The second thing, as Eugene just mentioned, is this proprietary low heat light engine. We knew LEDs and xenon bulbs and fluorescent bulbs weren't going to cut it, so we went back to the drawing board and recreated, or in some ways created for the first time, really what we see is a brand new way of making white light. And then finally, as Eugene also mentioned, this is drop-in replacement for extant systems. This isn't something where you have to go out and spend a huge capital investment to buy an entirely new system that you then incorporate into your inventory and into your supply chain and reteach everyone how to use it. This is something that out of the box works with what you already have set up within your hospital and within your practice. You already know how it works because it's built around the industry-leading practices on how these cameras function, and it integrates through a number of homogenizations that have happened within the industry. It integrates through the standard ports that are used in any type of patient data box and EHR.
Right. So our approach, as we've been doing this for approaching 3 years, we've already have 26 physicians from across the country who have already invested in us. These are some of the well-known names in the industry who run their own ASC practices, who own their own hospitals or are part of large systems. We have partnered with a number of high-tech names, high-brand names, NXP, obviously Angel MD. Some of our technology around the battery actually came from NASA, and we are also members of Startup Health. Internally, we have a fully audited and implemented quality management system. What that means from a practical perspective is, even though we're a small company, we are looking to go onto the market, and we are looking to grow with this one product as well, or the multiple products, and as well as looking to the future. And one of the most important bits around that is actually having a regulatory and compliance system, understanding your quality management system. And from a practical, very practical perspective, when we get through the FDA, if we get our FDA approval on a Friday, we can celebrate with everybody on the Angel MD on Saturday, but on Monday, we're already shipping our product. We don't need to wait for our compliance system to catch up. We don't need to wait for our manufacturing partners to catch up. All of our manufacturing partners have already been audited, so we are actually all ready to go from that perspective.
And finally, what's most exciting is that even though we've been working on this for 3 years, our momentum really is continuing to increase. We have 3 patents already filed on this project and the products, 2 of which have effective dates in the second half of 2015. Just for those who don't know, the patent application process typically takes about 3 to 5 years. So that's the reason why we don't have any patents issued, but we're in the final stage of that process. We've filed internationally, and we've translated those into national filings in the United States, in Europe, in China, in Japan. And we're looking to wrap up all of those things over the next year. They're currently under a patent pending protection, which gives us really a leg up. And all of our IP counsel, because we have IP-specific counsel, has said that, look, you know what, this is fantastic. Some of the results that we're seeing from national patent offices are actually far better than we would have ever expected. I mean, we knew that this technology was great going in, but we were very aggressive with what we had as our patent. We wanted to patent as broadly as possible, knowing that we would potentially get some pushback, but we haven't. As of yet, we still have incredibly broad patent application protection, which is really great both now and for our future. At the same time, our research and development has been completed. The light on the illumination light source end, that is ready to go. It's ready to be productized. And we're in the process of actually creating models that we can take to potential strategics and then potentially license them and get revenue coming into the company as soon as next quarter. on the arthro-free side, we've completed all of the research and development, and we're in the manufacturing optimization phase. We have a timeline about 2 or 3 slides later that really steps through this, but basically where we are is we're just making sure that everything is optimized so that when we go to commercial production, everything works. You know, there's a very different type of procedures that you use when you create prototypes, even high fidelity and functioning prototypes, than when you're producing something on a commercial line. And we've retained partners to really help us make sure that everything will be running smoothly. So as Eugene has mentioned, as soon as we finish our testing and have that FDA approval, we don't have to go back to the drawing board and try to fix things. And finally, we're looking to get certified in our current facility as ISO 13485, which is the medical device manufacturing certification. This is a very difficult certification, and most manufacturers don't actually ever get it because of its difficulty around the amount of regulation and compliance and documentation that you need to have. Even as a small company, it's even rarer. But we feel that it's very important because it really shows the length of process that we've gone to really establish a very robust quality system, which speaks volumes to what we're doing in order to protect the process and to protect the device and make sure that this is the best medical device that we can create.
Right. So this is just a few quotes that have come out over the years as we've been doing this, both from the physician side as well as various sales representatives. But really, it's one of those sort of things where, as the head of orthopedic surgery at the Cleveland Clinic, as one of those physicians told us, this is something that they've wanted for decades. They've had this need. They've thought that this is something that should already exist. It hasn't existed. It really hasn't existed because there's a number of fundamental technology challenges. We've overcome those challenges, and we're getting ready to bring it to market.
So what you see here is our development timeline. It starts today in May, or now June 2018, and goes through July 2019 when we're looking at our first sale. And this is for the arthro-free device specifically. Over the next few months, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be optimizing for this commercial scale production. That will lead to our final system test, which is estimated to be in October 2018. This will not only be the culmination of the manufacturing optimization, but also making sure we go into physicians, go to this physician, we go into cadaver labs, we potentially go into some operating rooms to make sure that everything is correct and is exactly how we want it to be, heading into design lock in December 2018, or near the end of the year. Following that, we'll go into our FDA testing phase. And so this is a non-de novo 510K Class 2 medical device. We already have our surgical pathway picked out. We're working with the leading musculoskeletal regulatory provider or regulatory firm in the United States, and they've said, look, this is exactly what you need to do, and if you follow it, you're golden. This firm has an above 95% success rate on first-time submissions. But even that is fantastic because our device does not require any type of clinical testing, any type of animal testing or cadaver testing. Because of our predicate-based status, all we need to do is do sterilization and these physical durability tests, which is what will happen during this phase. Finally, following that, we have FDA submission. This is just something that takes time. We've talked with both professionals outside of our vendor network as well as been counseled by our actual advisors, and they both agree that we're looking at a 90 to 110-day turnaround with approximately 1 round of questioning. That will lead to an FDA clearance in June following our first sale. Now, I want to make something very clear here. This is a bit of a conservative timeline. It's very possible that this could become compressed and we could be on the market as early as Q1 2019, but we put this here just to make sure that everyone understands that this is still a medical device, and even though that we've done everything that we can possibly do to de-risk it, that hardware still is creating a physical product. This isn't necessarily something where like a tech company where you could hire developers and they will solve the problem. We still have to go through the process of working with suppliers.
Right. Future applications. So as mentioned already, we're already looking to productize the light engine. The light engine, going back just a little bit to the earlier slide, I was just thinking about it. The light engine is actually 510K exempt, right? So light sources are generally non-FDA class, or they're class, they're a very straightforward class. We are very much interested in getting revenue in possibly as soon as next quarter, in the next 2 quarters, with either sales or licensing around our light engine. And the reason I mention that is because of these applications, right? What we've developed is we've developed a platform. We have developed a platform because we're looking for this future of the operating room. And as a platform, we have a number of technologies that we've either built or we've created, one of those being the light source, but we've also got a number of ideas and various concepts around our visualization, right? Once we're on the market and we're starting to saturate the orthopedic space, we can apply our technology to the ENT market, OBGYN. All of these physicians use pretty much the same exact tower system, but it's very much not optimized for how they do their surgery. We could actually help them tremendously. Our battery technology, we've not mentioned it, but we have some very serious advances around safe batteries for the medical sector. So powered surgical tools, potentially making things more consumable. And as Daniel earlier mentioned, around the wireless technology, we have some, again, advanced developments around a secure, stable wireless channel that is safe to use in an operating room for moving tremendous amounts of data.
So finally, that brings us to the opportunity. We are currently raising a $4.5 billion Series A. Of that, we've raised about $1 million already from our initial investors, from our seed round, who've come back. We are predominantly physician funded initially from our seed round and predominantly from orthopedic physicians, specifically because we went to them with this vision for arthro-free and for this future of the operating room. And what we heard time and time again is, yes, exactly. I understand what you're looking to do. I understand the team. One of the things that wasn't mentioned is prior to this company, Eugene actually ran a company called Dragon ID, which was a biomedical engineering and design consultancy. And I worked there as kind of the head of the human factors design. And we worked together with physicians to create medical devices. So this is something that we have a lot of experience doing, and we've brought on a board that has even more experience above and beyond what we know. And so they looked at us, they understood our background, they understood the passion that we had for this space, and we're excited to get involved. This $4.5 million, the primary uses of the funds will be staffing up in preparation for market entry. We need to add some industry veterans who are on the sales side, as well as build out our logistical footprint. We're not going to be manufacturing in-house. We'll be using a contract manufacturer, which will dramatically decrease the amount of capital we need to actually put this device in the market, but we will need to manage that. Secondly, obviously, is submitting and obtaining FDA clearance for the arthro-free visualization system. I want to make it very clear, we are currently a pre-FDA device, so we do not have FDA clearance yet, but we have the entire pathway set out before us and the contract signed to take us there. And finally, it's to commercialize and license this medical illumination technology. As Eugene mentioned, we're currently in the process of identifying and setting up those relationships with potential licensors, companies like Medtronic or Welch Allyn, that have a lot of interest in this space. We're specifically targeting lighted retractors and headlamps as the initial step, but we have a lot of interest and opportunity outside of that. And that's something that we'll be doing in the near term.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this presentation. Again, this has been Eugene Malinsky and Daniel Dudley with Indago. And again, we're here to make surgery smarter.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas. It was a great presentation. Dr. Parsley, do you have any questions for him?
I do have a series to kind of add to the clarification if possible. Gentlemen, very nice presentation, a very interesting technology. Can you tell me a little bit, if you could go back a couple of slides on your future applications? I think there's a lot of questions that surround this particular space. Tell us a little bit about the battery technology and how long will this battery last in the course of a surgical procedure in some of your trial settings that you've done? And then what is the rechargeability and how long does that process take? That's something that certainly affects our turnover.
Right, absolutely. So the batteries that we are using are advanced lithium-ion batteries. So think Tesla sort of batteries. That's actually one of the technologies that we work with NASA on. Actually, the battery we're using is the same one that's being used in satellites. So it is currently with our system. It's rated for approximately 2 hours of runtime. But the important bit there is, right, and standard, so the standard knee scope generally is around 20 to 30 minutes. So that should give plenty of time to most procedures. The one note I do want to make around that, for very long procedures like hip scopes and maybe some complex shoulders, the battery is actually very easily replaceable. So you actually just pop it out and you put a new one in and you're back up and running within around 30 seconds. So you're going to take a break anyway sometime during the procedure. It'll tell you on the screen if the battery is running low, and you just take it out and you plug it in, and that's all you're doing. As part of our package, so the standard package that we provide for hospitals or ASCs to get them started, we provide 5 batteries. So that should be enough to last you per operating room the entire day. The recharge time per battery is somewhere between, it obviously depends on how far it's been discharged, but it's somewhere between an hour to 4 hours if it's fully discharged. And then just in general, stepping back a little bit, we are using some advanced chemistry, but we're also using advanced circuitry to protect the device, to protect the battery from any sort of accidents that can happen. And as a future application, we see a lot of potential around using our battery technology for replacing current. For example, if you have powered saws, we could potentially take our batteries and replace that. Or if you have something like a shaver, which right now requires an external power source and obviously requires a cable, there's a lot of potential for us to be able to come in and actually use our battery tech to augment that and make that a wireless device by itself.
Sounds excellent. Another question I think that it would be nice to understand is the wireless technology that you're using. Tell us a little bit about that platform and what kind of clarity would I expect to see when I utilize this camera?
That's a great question. So there's really 2 parts to it. One of that is the wireless platform, and the other one is kind of the performance, I would say, of the video within said platform. So the wireless platform is, as I mentioned, it's something called UWB. UWB stands for ultra wideband wireless. It is a technology that was developed in the early 2000s as essentially something called, they originally called it wireless USB. It is out of the box AES 128 encrypted, so it has a end-to-end encryption. And it also has anti-spoofing measures, something called time of flight. The long story short on that is it knows how long the transmission is supposed to take from point A to point B, and if it takes longer, such as someone spoofs or pretends to be point B, and then retransmits it back out to point B, basically it's something called a man-in-the-middle attack. It prevents that from happening. It kills the communication, so it's very secure. It's predominantly used by the U.S. military right now, and in some medical applications for the specific reasons that they need it to be very stable. They need it to be able to transmit mission critical data without being interrupted or without losing signal. On the second hand, from a performance aspect, it has a very high bandwidth. We're looking at about 480 megabytes a second in terms of transfer, which means we can send uncompressed HD video without running into any latency or performance issues. When you watch TV on your phone or on a laptop and the video quality gets very bad, that's because your bandwidth can't support the amount of data that's being sent. So instead of dropping the video, it decreases the quality. We would never run into that, one, because it's not over some sort of rendering system. We don't have to render the video, but also the bandwidth is really there. So you will see no decrease because it's being wirelessly transmitted over what you can expect. In fact, in some ways, you may actually see an increase because we're using a top-of-the-line sensor, something called a CMOS sensor, that is brand new from a manufacturer, very well-known manufacturer, to actually provide our video. It's optimized for low light, and it's optimized for our application. So we can actually potentially provide an even better image by the combination and the alignment of the type of light we're using and the type of sensor we're using than you may otherwise see in current technology.
Thank you. That clarifies that quite a bit. And it's a fascinating technology that obviously many of us are not familiar with. So understanding the quality of the resolution and compared to what we have with our hard wires is going to be an important step. You have a lot of opportunity. There's future applications in many different areas based on the pieces of the technology that you put together. What do you see as the biggest barriers to adoption of this first line of technology that you're offering? Right.
Great question. So from a very practical perspective, right, we are a small company. We are entering a field that has very large whales in it. Everybody pretty much is in the hundreds of millions or in the billions. We will not have a $100 million marketing budget. So the number one biggest sort of barrier really is making sure that we are out there, that we are seen, that we are heard, that look, we have created this technology, that we've really created this platform that helps physicians be able to help their patients. And one of those sort of, that is pretty much sort of the number one issue that we see, right? We understand our manufacturing, we understand our supply chain, we understand the hires that we have to make. But one of the sort of fundamental issues is making sure that we have everything set for go-to-market. And we believe that we do. Daniel will actually speak to that in a little bit about the marketing and the sales side of what we've done and how we've prepared. But it should be very much understood that we are entering a very large, very heavily competitive field, but we bring something to the table that nobody has, and we really are making both a financial play, right? This is something that saves money, that potentially saves lives, but it's also something that physicians time and time again have told us that they want, that they are looking forward to having in their hands and being able to use in surgery.
Yeah, just to pick up on that, a very similar question that gets asked to us often is, what keeps you up at night? And I think Eugene hit it right on the head. The biggest thing that keeps us up at night, and the biggest, frankly, barrier to entry for us, is the size difference between us and our primary incumbent competitors. And we have to be very realistic about that. I mean, my background is I worked in business and marketing strategy for about 7 years, predominantly in the business-to-business space and especially focused in the healthcare space. Before founding this company, I was the lead strategist for an agency that focused on business-to-business applications, and I was in charge of about 60% of their clients, all of which were healthcare. And so I very much know and understand the many different tricks that people can pull on companies, whether it is some sort of bundling and discounting, whether it is questioning the technology, for instance, questioning reliability of wireless versus wired, or questioning, we've always used LEDs, why do you want to use this proprietary light source? And so from one side, we're working very diligently to make sure that we anticipate and can answer the various things that will be used against us. At the same time, we're working with our board members, Dr. Mark Freunton and with John Serbasek, to really leverage their experience in this space. John used to run medical companies, and so he was both the person in charge of deploying said strategies and responding to them. And Mark, being a hospital administrator, is someone who's very used to being on the receiving end of those strategies and understanding what it takes to get new technologies, innovative technologies into hospitals. And so really working with them to further supplement what our understanding is, what we need to do. At the same time, we want to be very conscious of the ROI on our activities, the return on investment. What we want to do, especially initially, is to not try to be everything for everyone. We're focused on arthroscopy as our initial application. I'm actually going to jump a couple slides down because we have this slide which kind of talks to additional surgical markets and the capabilities and revenue potentials there. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity, and we know that. But we want to start with arthroscopy and start in specific regions where there's a high density of orthopedic surgeries so we can really become known and become associated with one thing specifically and grow from there. We, as the saying goes, we want to learn to walk before we run. We've seen so many companies, and we've worked with so many companies in the past that have said, hey, you know what? I have a technology. There's 10 different uses. I'm going to take it to market, and I'm going to advertise for 10 different uses. And what you end up doing is you cannibalize your own company. You're spending all of your efforts in all of these different areas, and as another saying goes, an expert at everything is an expert at nothing. We want to become the expert technology in arthroscopy. We want to make sure that we're spending money on marketing and sales to really own that space, and from there really take opportunities as they come and move forward.
Thank you. That answers a broad scope of questions, but at the same time, talk a little bit to us about the cost comparison of this technology versus the competitive hardwired technology.
Right. So I'll get us started. From a pure cost perspective, right, whether it's ASCs or hospitals, sort of ignoring list prices, because list prices, as everybody knows, are whatever the company wants them to be. Our expectation is that we will be selling a fully bundled unit. So what that means is the camera, so the arthro-free system, the receiver, right, that actually replaces both the video and the light boxes and connects right into your patient box, 5 batteries, the battery charger, sterilization kit, and anything that you need in order to get an entire operating room started with just a single camera, and that we are very much aware that most ORs have between 3 to 6 cameras. But in order to get started with just a single camera, our expectation is that we will be selling that at approximately $15,000. Compare that to Extant Systems, which is the 3 boxes, the camera, and the cables, and that system tends to run about $10,000 per box, plus the camera, which is approximately another $8,000 to $15,000. So that ends up being $40K. And then the cables, especially the fiber optic it is more or less a consumable currently, right? It's it's very much something that breaks all the time, that decreases its effectiveness, and then you have to get a new one, and they cost anywhere from $700 to about $1,000, and you don't even have those cables with us. So that's something that you actually see immediate savings on. So from a direct cost comparison on current systems, based on feedback that we heard, based on pricing that we've heard from our various physicians and our partners, we're coming in as very, very competitive initially. But even if we are, for example, bundling was mentioned earlier, right? If one of the larger players comes in and starts offering bundling in order to try and win market share or prevent us from taking their market share, it's not all about the upfront costs, right? It really isn't. You have all of these secondary costs. Again, I just mentioned the cable, which is, let's say, $700 every 8 months for the life of that system per camera. But you've also got the sterilization costs, right? You have people costs of actually doing the sterilization, of hand washing 2 cables after every single surgery. You've got your setup time, you've got your breakdown time. The current systems aren't always well operated, so they have a particular amount of breakage that we've heard. Obviously, we also decrease, and this is an incidental cost, but depending on the hospital or the ASC size, we may actually directly decrease their insurance costs, because we've just eliminated the trip, or we've eliminated the fire risk, but we've decreased the trip risk. So we've actually heard conversations from some larger centers which are talking about outfitting multiple ORs. For them, this actually ends up being incredibly cost positive, because they actually save so much money on just the insurance costs. So all in all, you have primary costs, right? You have your direct cost of the system, which we feel is favorable to current systems, but you've also got a number of secondary costs, which we feel are even more favorable over the long term, over the life of the product. And then I'm going to answer a question that's about to come up, and that is, how long do we expect for this product to last? We actually are giving the standard industry 1-year warranty on it, and our expectation, because it's a completely solid state system, is that will last the standard 3 to 6 years under normal use conditions. And that goes for the entire system, including the batteries.
Thank you. Another question along the line of the technology, and that is, obviously you have a uniquely different technology that is very ripe for somebody to come in and purchase. Do you see the company being purchased as a outright, or the company selling off a piece of this technology, for example, just the arthroscopic portion, as you go on to develop other products under your patents?
So that's a great question. Actually, we have another slide on this, like what the various liquidity events are for the company. So really it breaks down into 3 areas, and I'll let Eugene kind of get into the specifics of them, but I think you're exactly right. The primary 2 of an acquisition or a licensing scenario really differentiates between whether we would, whole hog sell the company, get a nice paycheck for us and our investors, and, say, call it a day, or if we do something where we sell off a specific application, whether that is, as you can see on this licensing slide, an exclusive single specialty application, arthroscopy or knee arthroscopy, and then potentially another one being an exclusive multi-specialty license. So you get all different specialties for this thing, or some sort of potentially white labeling application where you have where you end up becoming an OEM. There's a company that we know pretty well that has that exact application, where you can go to Smith & Nephew, you can go to Stryker, you can go to other companies, and you can buy their product, but it just happens to have the name of Smith & Nephew or Stryker, et cetera. They still technically sell their own product, but they make most of their money as a white labeler. The other thing that's really interesting, and I'll turn it over to Eugene for this, is from a timing perspective. Whether or not any sort of these conversations around, acquisition of the technology happens immediately after the use of Arthur-free enters the market, or if it happens at a later stage.
Right, and then I'll talk about that, and I'm also going to bring up again the light engine, because it's a technology that's done, right? It's fully complete. It has a tremendous amount of IP protection around it, and we're actually looking to start having the licensing conversations around it in the next pretty much month and a half. So I'm going to sort of step back and go through what Daniel just said. So on a single product, single line sort of scenario, that is Arthur-free, right? So that exit is very much a potential exit. We are not opposed to that exit. So that would be one of the larger strategics coming in, having a conversation, and we are very open to this conversation, whether that is right before we enter the market, right after we enter the market, and that is the entire company and all of its IP. That's obviously a conversation worth having. The other conversation on sort of the acquisition side of the equation, which is, to be frank, is somewhat more interesting to us, and really not just to us, but to our investors, is really about the multi-product family, right? As we've mentioned earlier, we really are looking at the future of the operating room to make the operating room that everybody's been promised, but hasn't really been delivered. And that is something where we start utilizing our platform, right? The IP that we have that we mentioned earlier. So the wireless, the battery, the light engine, the video platform. And we really start talking about having maybe one, maybe two, maybe three products on the market. So say Arthur-free and a light engine and maybe something else, but also a number of things in the pipeline. That exit scenario tends to look a lot more lucrative generally for the company and for the investors, as well as for the potential company that could acquire us, right? That also opens us up to a much larger field of potential acquisition strategic companies. Going over to the licensing side, as Daniel mentioned, we could license, if we're talking about Arthur-free, we could license Arthur-free for orthopedics and then retain the license for GI or for OBGYN and be able to sell products there while still having significant revenue from orthopedics. It could be a white labeling scenario. We're very open to these sort of conversations. We're very also open to having conversations about sub-technology or sub-IP licensing, right? Whether it's our battery technology or something else, right? If a company wants to come in and integrate our technology into their products, we're happy to do that, and we definitely welcome that. Again, going back to our light engine, that is something that we are doing right now, right? With Arthur-free, just to sort of be clear, right, that development has progressed so far internally that at this point we're just finishing things up. We're getting ready for all of this manufacturing work. So that actually left a lot of time for our engineering team in order for them to go back to our light that we created for Arthur-free and to be able to say, all right, we created this light for Arthur-free. Let's see if we can create it, as Daniel mentioned earlier, for headlights, for retractors, for other applications where we can provide a brighter, whiter, cooler light that potentially is disposable, that can be battery powered off a very small cell. There's all of these applications that we're looking at, some of which we're pursuing already and may even have revenue in the next quarter or two. And then obviously on the slide we have the public offering. this is one of those things where every company says this is a potential in their plan. We're keeping this as a potential in our plan. As the company evolves, we'll see where we end up, and we'll see how far we can take ourselves and our investors.
Thank you very much. It shows a lot of opportunity and potential in many different directions. So the creativity continues to grow. My last question is, this ask or this Series A is a $4.5 million raise. How far will that take us? And do you foresee having additional needs for fundraising in the future? And if so, give us an idea of what your financial situation is and time to potential profitability.
It's a great question. So the 4.5 million raise is really designed to take us the next, let's say, 18 to 24 months. It's to take us both from where we are right now to market, but also to give us time on market with the device, selling it. We already know from our initial physicians and networks that we have people who are very interested in purchasing our device. Obviously, we are a pre-FDA approved device, so we cannot legally have any sort of sales or even have any sort of formalized discussions around sales, or else we run into the risk of advertising and selling a unregistered medical device. But we do know that there are a number of people who are very interested in the opportunities of the technology and would like to purchase it. So this is really designed to get us to market and to get those first sales coming in initially. If, however, for some reason we don't have those sales, this still gives us a buffer. We don't want to be a company, because again, we've seen this happen so many times, where the company raises just enough money to get to market entry, thinking, oh, I'll get to market entry and then I'll be acquired, only to not find an acquirer. And then they either have to raise money at a significant discount or sell the company at a significant discount. As it is right now, depending on how the licensing conversations go, we expect to have those conversations begin over the next 2 to 3 months. It is quite possible that we can leverage those conversations into the amount of money that would need to get us to profitability on arthro-free. That is still to be determined at this point, but was it, if that was not the case, if we were to not be successful in, at least in the near term, in licensing that technology, that would still provide us, the 4.5 alone would provide us to the end of 2019 to the beginning of 2020. At that point, being on the market and anticipating sales, it gives us a couple of options. If we have robust sales growth going forward, we could go out and raise money to really accelerate that growth. We would be raising, obviously, the significantly increased valuation, so investors would obviously see the returns in that. But it also would be very targeted in saying, we're raising money to take us to go from 0 to 60, as opposed to like 0 to 10. Alternatively to that, if we're seeing sales growth and we're running into cash flow problems, for instance, maybe we're at the end of 2019, we just got $200,000 worth of invoices coming in, but it's on a 90-day payable and we don't have money for the actual manufacturing. There are a number of other opportunities that we've explored, such as invoice factoring, which would allow us to bring in the additional money for manufacturing without having to kind of go back out to the market. Again, there's a lot of unknown at this point, but it will really be determined once we're on the market. But the short story of it all is this will provide us the capital to get to 2020, and if we would be raising additional money, it would be to accelerate growth.
Right, and then for the uses of the capital capital is going obviously towards staff and engineering salaries, market entry. So the small marketing budget that we will have, being able to have our distributor network set up. R&D is about 20%. Again, as we've mentioned, we want to have a pipeline moving forward, so we've actually allocated some of this money for that. Regulatory and IP, that is for Arthur-free, and then the other really is just making sure that we cover all of our bases for everything. If there are further questions on what the expenses are, we've actually prepared a pretty robust expense sheet, and we'll be happy to share that with any Angel MD syndicate members. To that point as well, we have a number of documents, everything from internally generated white papers around the safety of current systems versus our systems, to various tear sheets, bios of ourselves and the rest of our team. We would be more than happy to share all of those with the Angel MD syndicate folks, and obviously answer questions. Daniel, myself, the rest of the team is available, and I know that the syndicate leaders would be able to make themselves available, as well as the rest of our board.
Well, thank you very much. I think that this is a very exciting technology, not only the first offering that we have with the Arthur-free, but also the technology that drives it behind. I think this is a great opportunity for our investors with Angel MD to get on board and provide some financial support for this startup company. And it sounds like the technology and the plan is well thought out, and we will move forward from here.
Yep, thank you, Dr. Parsley. And again, for anyone watching this, if you're not registered as a member, please feel free to sign up. Go to angelmd.co/sign up to register. Should you have any other questions about Indago that weren't answered on this webinar, or about the syndicate investment in general, please feel free to reach out via the Ask a Question box here on the right side of the syndicate page. That will connect you with our financial operations team, and we can get those questions answered. The minimum investment for the syndicate will be $10,000, and to invest, you must be an accredited investor based on U.S. accreditation standards. We do have the ability to accept investment from self-directed retirement accounts, and if you'd like more information on that, please reach out via that same Ask a Question box. We can get that to you. Thanks so much for your time today, and we look forward to having you invest with Angel MD.